Epic primary battles unfolding across America, setting the stage for what's sure to be a blockbuster midterm election. It's still down to the wire in Pennsylvania, where Dave McCormick and Trump-backed Dr. Mehmet Oz are neck and neck, and only separated by just a few thousand votes. But both candidates are confident of victory.
When all the votes are tallied, I am confident we will win. We are making a ferocious charge. But when it's this close, what else would you expect? Everything about this campaign has been tight.
We felt it on the ground. We knew it was working. We knew our message. We can see the path ahead. We can see victory ahead.
And it was a big night for other Trump-backed candidates who won in their races in Pennsylvania and North Carolina, which is a stark contrast to President Biden. Democratic candidates like John Fetterman and Tim Ryan have kept their distance from the big guy, and Kellyanne Conway knows why.
And this is really a reflection of what's going on with the two political parties and their heads right now. So everybody wants Donald Trump's endorsement. That does not happen on the Democratic side. John Fetterman, the new Democratic nominee, thank God he's recovered. He doesn't want Joe Biden. Joe Biden went to the state, and he was nowhere to be found until the bridge collapsed and he showed up in his shorts and sweatshirt. They don't want Joe Biden and Kamala Harris campaigning with them. And it tells you the tale of the two parties right now.
That comes as Mr. Unity goes negative. A new report claims President Biden is finally going to try to stop working with the GOP and instead go on the attack as he looks to create a contrast between his job performance and ultra-MAGA candidates, in his words. Dana, what was your reaction to what we saw last night?
I think there's, oh, wow, how much time are you going to give me here? All right, well, a few things. One, if you look at the Senate race in North Carolina, the Trump-backed candidate there, Ted Budd, ran away with it. I mean, the cat ran away with the spoon. It was called at like 8:02 p.m. There was just no question that that was going to go in Ted Budd's way, and McCrory just fell away. I mean, it's like by 35 points. Madison Cawthorn losing, that is something that's kind of, you know, this is a young man who maybe we'll see where he is in 5 years.
Okay.
You know, does he take this experience and then decide to do something different? You know, one of the things he said is that he decided to hire mostly communications people. He didn't need policy people. Well, if you don't have that, you don't have victories to run on or accomplishments to run on, and you end up basically running on a message, and he ended up getting viciously attacked. I'm not saying it wasn't meritorious, but so he's no longer there. But I think the Pennsylvania race is something that is just so interesting. One on the Republican side, but if I could comment on the Democrats real quick. So John Fetterman, also the cat ran away with the spoon in that one. He just destroyed Connor Lamb. Connor Lamb was a guy who was considered, like, you would think he was the perfect candidate straight out of central casting for a moderate Democrat in a state like Pennsylvania, where he could appeal to the working class, and he could also, like, rub elbows with the tech guys that want to build more companies in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh. And he just could never get any traction. Why? So John Fetterman, lieutenant governor, he ends up in the hospital, has a stroke. This guy, though, absolutely destroyed Connor Lamb. And so this tells you where the Democratic Party is going. Fetterman oozes charisma and authenticity. He is an original Bernie bro.
Right.
He wants Medicare for all, and he is going to be tagged as a socialist. But I'm telling you, the Republicans should not sleep on him, because this race is also going to be very tight. It's not going to be tight in North Carolina, but Pennsylvania will remain tight. On the Republican side of things, I would say that there's only one candidate, presidential candidate, that has won Pennsylvania since 1988, and that was Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And he ran a race that was different. It was wild. People were following it. He created this amazing base of support. And any Republican who was not him has to run a near-perfect race. Mitch McConnell today said he believes that whoever wins in Pennsylvania, that they feel very strongly that they can win in Pennsylvania. But I will tell you, I think that the Republicans are just make sure that while they have this fight and they might have a recount, John Fetterman's campaign is already off.
Oh, Fetterman. He's about your size, I think, right?
No, he's shorter, but yeah.
6'9",
yeah.
Shorter?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
he's smaller.
He doesn't like suits. He wears sweats.
Yeah, I like him in the sense that he's different, but looking at what I saw was a fever of just battles from top. Like, Republicans had votes going 3 deep, which means the numbers, when you look at who was showing up to vote, the numbers of Republicans that were coming out to vote, I don't care if you're a Superman running for a Democrat. You should really be afraid, because, yes, your campaign's getting started early, but the sheer numbers, third place is running strong, which means that when all of them come together.
And they have to come together.
And I think they will. I think the Republicans get it. They're, they know, they've seen what's going on. They want their police forces back. They want respect back. They want to get inflation down. They want to get America back, at least in the top 5 of importance in this country right now. So we're seeing big numbers, and I'm just looking at how many people are showing up at the ballot, and it's a huge difference. I think the only ones who are showing up for the Democrats are the progressives, because the moderates are going, you know what, we're kind of better off with the other guys.
That's a good point. Do you think that the Republicans are going to coalesce around Mehmet or McCormick or whoever it is?
I do, absolutely. And I think that John Fetterman probably doesn't want to go up against Mehmet Oz, because not only is he battle tested in a really tough primary, he's got name recognition. And if you're talking about socialized medicine, who better to dissect what the government has done to ruin healthcare in this country than a doctor who has enriched himself in the free market, not only in medicine, but in entertainment as well. So he really cares about that issue, and I hope he pins John Fetterman down on this, because with inflation where it's at and, taxes, a tax hike on the horizon, you compound that with Medicare for all, we cannot afford that. The healthcare industry cannot afford that. So, yes, I do think it's going to be very tough. I thought the Madison Cawthorn thing was interesting because he had been pulling ahead, and I thought that perhaps the former president's endorsement of him last minute might help, but he's so far lost only by a couple percentage points. And you're absolutely right. There has to be something there. It has to be substantive. There has to be policy behind the person. We can no longer become attached to people because of their characteristics or their interesting life stories. How they lead and how they fleece us, far more important. Fleece us.
Geraldo, looking at the endorsements, does Donald Trump still have that magic touch?
Oh, no doubt about it. I think that the fact that, from my state in Ohio, everybody was, looking for Donald Trump to endorse him, and is very, very potent. He had a couple of misses here or there. We discussed Cawthorn and some others. But I must say, a couple of quick points. Number one, John Fetterman is enormously charismatic. He does remind me a lot of you, Tyrus. And I believe that he will cross over. It's not just progressive, it's cool. He's a very cool guy. I like him a lot. I endorsed, and if I could endorse, Dr. Oz, a longtime friend of mine, wife Lisa, wonderful people. They were great on TV, but more than that, they grew very good people. And I was very, very disturbed by how he was slimed by Dave McCormick. Dave McCormick was also a very attractive guy. I mean, he's a GI, a self-made multi-millionaire. He's a Bronze Star, awarded the Bronze Star. But going after Mehmet Oz, a lot of it was Muslim hate. Family born in, his parents were from Turkey. Oz served in the Turkish army. I really found that extremely distasteful. I felt very bad that he had to endure that those attacks, very unfair attacks. But I want to say one other thing about elections. When I was a kid, election day was a day. One day, you go to vote. Most people went in person to vote. Older disabled people, now I would probably number among them, got absentee ballots, mail-in ballots, very rare, though, as a percentage. But everybody showed up, and then that night, you could gather around the TV, and you knew who won. Because the absentee ballots, the military ballots, the provisional ballots, all these ballots were like Florida does now after the disaster of the Hanging Chad. Now you get the count, they keep the running tally of the people that vote early, and election day you do it, not this torture. It makes people lose faith in the system. I think they got.
And we get better ratings when they announce it the same night.
Even when it's in the middle of the night. How exciting is that?
Yeah, stay up, watch it.
Preferably not between 11 and 12 p.m. I know a certain small stature.
Oh, right.
Very
that guy.
upset.
That guy.
Chester Butterfield.
He's always upset.
He could be your lifeboat.
All right.
You could just
Coming up
in shallow water.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.